Welcome back, guys. Last week I put out the first in a series on dragons I wanted to do to just show how you can play both defensively against dragons and get the most out of them when you're playing them. By dragons, really we mean the hammer unit that you have that is going to score points. So I believe that there's sort of three subcategories of units. You've got your hammers that score points, anvils that soak up damage and win through like outlasting the more tempestuous hammer units that might be only need tempo or initiative to score their points on impact hits or using something like lances. And then the chaff war machine type units that sort of are effective in the early stages of the game but become liabilities later on. In this sense, we wanted to look at dragons as a proxy for just when you have, what do you do with the biggest things that you have on the board and how can you play them to an advantage or against them and minimize how to prevent that damage. So in this board, you can see I've got my dragon at the bottom, and there's a dragon up here on the right that's opposing me. I was behind, oh, sorry, I had to go ahead in deployment. So what I've had to do is hedge my bets and think, well, do I want to go straight for these units? Because the Cold One Knights are going to be where I can score most of my points. Or, but also sort of deter this dragon from coming forward depending on who wins the first turn because it's going to mince all of these points. So really this game is going to turn into, if these dragons engage each other, it's probably a bit of a wash. However, if we go for it, who can score more points by killing the other side? And I believed at the start of the game that might be able to protect this Silverhelm unit and win that war. However, I guess this video is mostly to show you that, yeah, how can you then move with the dragon? So deployment is already part of that battle. Like 20-inch march gives you a lot of space to move into this part of the board. And that's sort of what happened to me next. So the dragon slid past out of my charge arc. So I wasn't going to really be able to protect anything anyway over here. So I decided to go, as you can see on the right, to attack these other units. So the first thing that you need to do, a 20-inch flying wheel is huge. And I'm able to pull right round and threaten. What you need to do when you position your dragon or any hammer unit is make sure that you're maximizing the charge arc, not just to have as many targets as possible, but what you're going to find is that units will often flee from something like a dragon, and they will want to. You'll need to you'll want to redirect that charge, and the redirect choice, which we've made a video about earlier, is incredible because there are limited set of charge reactions on that redirection. So in this sense, I've opened up this arc to be able to threaten the bolt throwers, this crossbow group, even the Pegasus sorcerer, and these dark riders. Ideally, I'd love to get this cold one, and that deployment was critical for preventing me from doing that. What happens on the next turn, and this is another part of playing these units really well, is I've attacked a crossbowman because what is important, and you would have seen this in the last video, is having an overrun path. So by hitting that crossbow group, I can overrun into these bolt throwers if it's close enough. And that's what I've got the choice of now. What happened here is I was able to kill them, but I didn't kill enough of them to wipe them out. So instead, I have to pursue, and then when I pursued, I land here. And the critical thing with these big monsters is that ability to restrain and reform. So one of the reasons why I think often the generals for the elves, particularly, or the Chaos Lord, anything that is sitting on top of a dragon. The warrior version is, or the Lord version is often better because it has greater leadership. So while you might have a Archmage or Archmage with leadership 8, that's not going to pass every restrain or reform test. So being able to restrain and then position again, once again, expanding the arc to be able to threaten all of these units, I think is part of the deal with these hammer units. You really need to have that leadership as high as possible to do this because you're going to fail more often if you don't. So that's what happens here. My dragon is then able to threaten these units. They're highly mobile. And you can see these other units move out of the way. So that's where you sort of have to look at when you're playing these units, it's about keeping your options open for as long as possible. It's making sure that you're able to threaten as many units as possible. And when you do threaten, you're thinking about overruns and you're thinking about how you can go ahead and attack, maybe even get into another combat in the end. You need to make sure that you are winning and moving on as well, which is important. Like getting bogged down for these units loses time. You need to be able to use that tempo, create panic tests, break tests that cause panic amongst other units, essentially dominate sides of the board, which can also create a lot of space for your units to come into. So that's how this played out for this dragon. And in the end, I don't think I was able to score. I wasn't able to score as many points as the other side. My silver helms failed. Roughly, I think the dragons might have been a wash, but at the same time, or on the right flank, if you saw the previous video. But I think you can see that dragons have a little bit of finesse to them and aren't just about being able to run ahead and smash, though there's a version to that we'll look at next week. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you then.